So the less we bicker or try to like do this little ego standoff amongst each other, the better. It's okay to go ahead and open up and offer this information.
Yeah, definitely. It's okay to talk to each other, everyone.
It's okay.
It's okay. Everyone's still gonna have a job. Welcome to Maverick Minded Realtors, a podcast for realtors, clients, investors alike, basically anyone that wants to stay sharp in an ever-changing landscape of real estate. We are here to talk to you about updates to the NAR settlement and now what the market looks like after a few months of the change, right? It's been a couple months now.
Yeah, well, like August 17th, so it's been a little over a month since they absolutely went into effect. You know, obviously we were trying to get a jump on things, get it started throughout the summer, but now it's official. And things have been a little bumpy, you know, as you would imagine. People do not like change. They hate it.
Yeah, so a quick reminder on what the main core changes were.
So basically, just to recap, because we did go over this before, and if you want all the details, go back and watch that video. But NAR made changes, a settlement, you know, if you will, that now all agents pretty much, if you're a buyer's agent, you have to get a buyer's agent agreement made with your buyer that basically states exactly what you are to be paid in that transaction. You're not assuming that it's going to get paid out of closing by the seller or the selling broker. You are having a contract between you and that buyer that says, I get this amount. Whether they can pay me or not, this is how much I get paid, and you're agreeing to that. And so that buyer has a contract with you that they are going to pay you this amount. And in addition to that, now we cannot put anything on the MLS or any type of website that hosts or shows
Where we gather.
Where realtors
gather. Which seems vague in and of itself.
Yeah. But you're not really supposed to put anything out there that indicates what the buyer or what the seller is willing to pay the buyer's agent. So the commissions, everything, you've got to call the selling agents directly and you've got to get that information, right? And so that's basically where we are.
That's pretty much
the nuts and bolts of it.
Right. So I definitely have seen it affect client perspectives. So we definitely have more savvy clients. It's definitely changing how agent to agent communication and some expectations. So client's perspective, what are you really seeing in a difference on how actual buyers and sellers, are they asking about it? Are they having communication about it? Kind of what are you seeing out there?
Well, like you and I were talking about just before we started recording, is my listing appointments those communications are different because whether they understand what's going on or not, you've heard it in the news enough to where they're asking the question, you know, do I not have to pay anybody anymore? Am I making more money? You know,
that's the one I hear
is,
oh, I've heard I don't have to pay anybody anymore. Realtors are actually saying that. So they're interviewing people and I'm like, oh, wait, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Not quite.
We just work for free. No.
I mean, I guess you could.
Yeah. But, you know, then it's a matter of educating your client, right?
Yeah.
And so during our listing appointments, I know you do this just like I do, and I encourage all agents out there. It's not that I'm advocating for what that buyer's agent is going to get paid, but I am saying to my sellers, look, not a lot's really changed. The burden of bringing money to the table and being able to afford the house has always been pretty heavy on the buyer side. And if you insist that they also pay for their buyer agent in full, then you're probably doing your listing a disservice.
Right.
You know, ultimately we need those buying agents, right? We need them to come and look at these houses and show their clients and get us under contract. That's the goal. So it's like, do you want to do advertising or did you want to sit here and keep it undercover and keep it secret? Because literally a buyer's agent does not have to show that listing if they're not getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually got a listing recently from a seller. I usually work with investors, but in this particular case, I had a referral next door to a house an investor was flipping. And they had a family realtor that they've always used, and then they had interviewed someone else who just happened to have come by or reached out to them, and I was referred, and when I was speaking with her, it was interesting. She seemed confused. She's like, one agent told me, no, it's still going to be 6%, which you can do. The second was like, actually, you don't have to. We can do it for 3% because you just have to pay me. You don't have to pay them anymore. She's like, well, I think that was a little fishy because I've read a little bit about it, but that didn't seem right. And then I went and talked with her, and I was an in-between. I do discounted commissions, but I still think you should offer something to them. And if you don't, then yes, you run the risk of them not being able to show your house because their client's not going to be able to afford it. So,
yeah. And especially in, like you and I know, in certain price range, then it's an absolute. You really must. If you're doing lower to mid income housing, then you really should be offering that hands down.
Yeah.
Because those buyers are doing everything they can to bring that to the table, and the additional however much percent is a make or break situation of they wouldn't be able to buy the house.
Definitely. So. Yeah. So in regards to agent communication, I haven't really seen a huge shift other than people reach out a lot sooner and faster, which I'm not going to lie, I kind of like, because then I know who's interested in my listing, and it's an opportunity to connect with them right out of the gate. Because a lot of times it's like pulling teeth to get realtors to even respond to feedback requests, or even let you know if they're interested, or even give any kind of anything about anything. And it is like pulling teeth. And so I kind of like it because I can go back and say, oh, they asked me about the commission. They must have some kind of interest. So even if you aren't getting enough showings, I can always go back or renegotiate with my seller and say, hey, is there any way that we can increase this? I think it's just a good connection point. It might seem a little frustrating and annoying, but I've seen two big shifts with the agent to agent, and you can tell me if you've seen the same thing. But one is obviously they're reaching out pretty quickly and asking for the BAC, and then there's others that aren't asking at all. They're just basically making an offer and just putting the 3% in there and just waiting for a counter, which I've seen quite a few of as well. Have you noticed that that's an actual strategic tactic of certain agents, or is it just they don't want to reach out?
I think it's twofold. I think it could be that it's strategic, and that they have been taught that, look, just make the offer and include it in the offer. They can say yes, no, or negotiate it out, which is great. But like you and I discussed before the show, it's one of those things that if you don't know prior to, and they are absolutely line in the sand, I am not going to pay any buyer commission whatsoever, then your buyer cannot, then you just showed them a house that they want to put a contract on that now you may or may not get paid on.
Mm-hmm.
Was like, and that puts the agent in a really bad position, So I do feel like that everybody should be reaching out. The other thing that I've noticed is that when you're reaching out, sometimes the listing agent is being very vague or being, I think a lot of ego gets in the way, right? Like we were talking about the Kens out there that are like, oh, I know more than you do, so I'm going to put up this front. And so they kind of put up this front of, well, you just make that offer nice enough, we'll consider anything. It just has to be. I don't know that that's doing your client any service.
I don't think so either. I don't even understand the heart behind that, because at the end of the day, their job is to get a more accurate offer, less back and forth, more upfront. And if they're honest about it, and the agent says back, hey, listen, we do have an agreement to get a certain amount, I would almost talk with the agent and say, hey, is there any leeway you could maybe reduce your commission if they love the house? Or, it's also an opportunity to vet their financial situation, because if they can't pay even 1% of a commission, it's like, how much leeway is there really if they don't get certain terms on their contract? So I think it actually gives a bigger perspective on the qualification of the buyer as well.
Well, and it comes down to communication. But from the get-go with this thing, and I said it before it ever went into effect, is that communication between you and your client has got to be more extensive, whether you're on the listing side or the buying side. And then now, like, we're all agents going for we all have the same goal, right? We're all trying to get to the finish line. Best for our clients. The house gets sold, the person's in the house with as little problems as possible. So the less we bicker or try to do this little ego standoff amongst each other, the better. I'm not saying give away all the private secrets of your listing, but it's okay to go ahead and open up and offer this information.
Yeah, definitely. It's okay to talk to each other, everyone.
It's okay.
Everyone's still going to have a job. I do think it's funny. Everyone's like, everything is shifting, everything is changing. And I really haven't seen a lot. I do see a lot more competition And you're right, the ones that communicate, which I've always thought with realtors, like if you're going to be a realtor, communication and sales have got to be a skill set. I mean, unless you have someone else.
Yeah, if you don't have it, work on it. All kinds of books and classes. Come on,
But I do think it's a really good opportunity, and I've noticed this with some realtors that are a little bit newer that I've talked with. They are a little bit, without the experience, unsure of how to navigate because they thought, oh, it was a certain way. They predicted a certain amount of income. Another kind of interesting thing I've seen is people now changing their offering structures as a realtor, which some savvy realtors do. They might offer a commission tier to their client, which I think is a great idea in this market because it allows flexibility depending on what your other competition is and gives your client a little bit more of a, what's the right word? Like just options to use you at a price point they can afford you at. And the buyer's agents can do this as well. So if you want to make that 3%, you can advertise it as a full service. Then you could take it down even just 0.25% to, hey, I'll do it for 2.75, but maybe I won't put this amount of money into marketing, or I won't pay for photos. You'll have to pay for them and I'll do the rest. Or as a buyer's agent, hey, I'm absolutely at this percentage, am willing to offer you X amount of houses within a certain range, and the buyers might choose to take up a little bit more legwork on their own and then just use you for the contract piece of it. You never really know what's out there. So that's just some advice to somebody who's wondering how to navigate or be competitive. Give yourself some tiers, give your client options or a la carte options.
It also lets you, because we're really all about it's solutions, right? We're solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's whether it's the seller trying to sell their home or the buyer trying to find one, we're solving that for them.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, I need to know what are your parameters? And that's what that discussion does, is it describes it, it puts it in a neat little package for you, and you have a better understanding of what your client's goals are.
Yeah, definitely. And you're just more options for them. I think it makes you competitive. So
yeah,
a little nugget for you.
That's right.
Or you could just be discounted and do full service like I do, and it works great for me because I have a reputation for doing full service, but also just making it affordable, you know. But I'm in a certain price point, so
you also work with a lot of investors.
Yeah.
So that's in the investor side of things. For those of you that don't know, in the investor side of things, that's what they're looking for. Is they want to know what kind of service they're getting, and they usually want all the services for as little as possible. You know,
always as little as possible,
because they're trying to cut corners everywhere they can, which I can appreciate and you can appreciate because we invest as well. But that doesn't mean their full services are slightly different than a retail client full services to me.
Very much different.
Yeah. So it's just a different way of doing things, different business strategy.
Which kind of brings me full circle to, it's interesting how many of the conversations are really so broad. I don't see a lot of chatter between agents about the difference of clientele and offering different structures to different clientele. I don't know if you've seen that, but I just feel like there's a little lack of creativity in the majority of the conversations out there of problem solving within our industry. So I don't know. I think as of today, it's a lot more communications happening, but I don't see it affecting my business so much. Personally,
I don't really see it like there is a lot more conversation. That's about it. A lot more conversation with the other agents, with, like them reaching out to me with those listings, a lot more conversations with clients because they want to understand because it was very convoluted and the media really didn't do us any favors whatsoever with the way that they covered it. So it's been interesting, but from the get-go, it's been about transparency and conversations. One thing that, like I told you, being on that panel with a bunch of brokers and attorneys and title and everybody, we got on that panel thinking everybody was going to have an absolute different or polarized opinions about what was going on in the market. And we were all really pretty much on the same page, about the only thing that we weren't on the same page about was where agents gather.
If you know where agents gather, comment below. Yeah, there was some controversy over what does that mean? That's such a vague concept, where they gather. But social media is where a majority of us gather. We have masterminds in there, groups in there, things things like that. So I would stay away from that personally because it's a little bit vague, but,
but like
good point.
on the panel, I mean, everybody was like, no way. I can put it on social media. That's my page. And I was like, yeah, but that's where agents gather. And I'm like, not that I think that there's going to be social media police come in there and go, she's advertising what the buyer's agent commission is going to be. I don't think anybody's policing that. But do I think there's a Ken
or Karen
out there that maybe does not favor you or maybe is a little jealous of you and they saw that? Yeah. Do I think they might turn you in?
Absolutely. They will.
And I was like, so that's what you have to be aware of.
You know, a lot of the posts on some of these groups, they almost seem so extreme, the things that they ask and say, that I can't believe it's real, but maybe it is. I don't know. I've seen in some groups where I don't know if they're just inciting conversation or like trying to rile people up, but some of the chatter in those groups, there's a lot of Karens and Kens, so just beware.
Yeah.
Because anybody can report you to TREC. Anybody.
Yeah, and with anything. I've gone through a plethora of TREC disputes, and they're not, most of them aren't substantiated. It's just somebody getting mad in a transaction, you know? But that doesn't mean that it isn't a pain in the butt to dispute it.
Right, absolutely.
So anyway, that's an update on all the changes.
Which isn't much.
Yeah, it's just conversations, more conversations, be clear, use the right forms. Here we have specific forms, and specifically in Texas, they say that if you've got a form for it, you're not supposed to put it in the main contract. There's a few nuances there, but I mean, there's forms for it, and just know that if you put 3% on that, second to the last page of a contract, thinking, or 2%, or whatever your commission is, if you put your commission on that second to the last page of the contract, that is not binding. That's there for informational purposes only. So
you need to make sure that you have the actual broker compensation agreement between agents. I have actually seen buyer agents be really good about sending this to me as a listing agent. On this last a condo that I'm doing right now, I've had maybe 4 or 5. Not a single one has sent one over. I just noticed.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. So the broker compensation agreement will cover you. Make sure you include it with all of your offers. And listing agents watch for it as well, because we're used to the buyer's agents doing that, but they might miss it as they're getting used to some of the changes. So we'll keep an eye on things. And if anything pops up that is interesting or something to laugh at, we'll absolutely be sure to bring it to the next episode. If you got any questions, comments, anything that you feel we said that might not be your experience, we'd love to hear from you. Whether you're a realtor, an investor, somebody who's looking for one that just wants some insight into what questions to ask, comment below, like us, share us, and we're here to bring you information as it comes.
Thanks for joining us.